loud enough. America cannot be loud enough right now. We have got to speak up. You guys, if you go to the Joe Mullins radio show, you can see this show aired, and it'll be put in production probably sometime before the weekend. It will not air on Salem Media until the following weekend, and it'll air on every one of their Florida stations, as well as several stations across the country, and then it's podcasted. If you go to Facebook, it's the Joe Mullins Radio Show. You can see Mike Lindell's interview. You can see Senator Scott, so many of the others that have been on there recently. But you can also see this one, which I think this one's probably going to be one of the most important ones of the year, because it's an opportunity for the public to speak up and say stuff and give a voice. We've got a very important race here in Florida. It's for governor of Florida. Just think about this. 8 years ago, we were very close to having a Democratic governor. I was a commissioner at the time. I couldn't believe when COVID hit what it did to this country, what it did to our communities, our counties. I was traveling all over the country, and I was speaking to people that were begging for money in other counties, other commissioners. And I said, why don't y'all just open? And they said, we don't want to be like Florida. We don't want to be stepping over dead bodies like y'all are doing. I told the guy, I said, I just came from Florida. I didn't step over. I said, if I'd have saw a dead body in there, I'd have ran, and I wouldn't go back to Florida for a while. I said, but that's not true. That's what the media does to make us think we're falling apart. They're manipulative. They're horrible. And they hate shows like this because we bring in people and tell the truth, and we give them the chance to speak. This governor race is so crucial that we get the right person in that seat, because can you imagine if Gillum would have won 8 years ago? While COVID was going on, he would have been in a hotel room in Miami doing God knows what. I don't need to repeat that. A lot of y'all know what he was doing. But that's not the leadership that we had. As a commissioner, I stood very strong in we keeping our beach. One of the biggest things I said is, my forefathers stormed a beach so we can walk freely on them. There's no way in hell we're closing our beaches in Florida. There's no way in Flagler. I had many liberals attack me and say, you can't do this, you can't do it. We're going to call the governor. We're going to call your state house. We're going to call our rep. Well, my state house rep happened to be sitting to the left of me, and I went, go ahead. You want me to dial his number? He just said what I said a few days ago. That's who I got it from. That is leadership, somebody that's not scared to stand out and lead. And that's why it's great to have people like our speaker running for positions like this. We know Florida's going to be safe, but can you imagine if Florida wasn't there, what our country would be right now? Can you imagine if we'd have lost that last election, what our country would be? That is why these meetings and these events are so important. Not for just us, but for the youth of America. One of the biggest issues we have are freedom, economy, and public safety. Those are the three topics I'm going to question our Speaker of the House and our governor, our future governor, with right now. Before I do it, I'd like to step over and let you, our Speaker Renner, tell the community who you are. I'm sure some of these guys maybe they're new to the area, and you could speak and let them know who you are. Let me start the show off real quick, though. All right, we're going to officially start the show.
This is the Joe Mullins Show, showcasing the vibrant spirit of Florida and America's innovative creators. This is the place for captivating conversations, inspiring guests, and industry professionals celebrating the best place in the world to live, shop, work, and play. And now, your host, County Commissioner, entrepreneur, and freedom advocate, Joe Mullins.
Hello, Florida. This is Joe Mullins of the Live Workshop Play Show, and we are live today at Duval Republican Club meeting in Jacksonville, Florida. It's very exciting to see some of the greatest patriots here fighting to keep our country the best place to live, work, shop, and play. You're about to hear why Florida, especially Duval County, is leading the nation, saving our country for our kids and for our future that this country deserves to stay and remain the greatest country. Let's get started. Today with me, I have two very special guests. I've got Charles Barr, who is the chairman of the Republican Club of Duval,
Do all, yeah.
Yep, I got it right.
There you go.
Chairman, thank you for joining us today, and it's very exciting to have you on and let your voice and this club's voice reign to the world what we're going to do, why we're going to stand strong this year, stronger than we ever have before. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. This is great being here. It's great having you here. And it's great having one of the gubernatorial candidates here with us tonight as well.
Today, we have got a very special guest with us. We have got the former Speaker of the House, Paul Renner, who is one of my favorite representatives of the state of Florida because he served our community and he fought strong for us in many, many different areas. But he led the state in making it one of the most conservative places in one of the most crucial battle times that we've ever seen. That's during the Biden, well, maybe even we should say the Obama era or whoever area, the Clinton, whatever was guiding Biden when that auto pen. He was leading the state of Florida and helping us fight. Speaker Renner, thank you for joining the show today.
Great to be with you.
Now, you have a very special announcement to make. We've pretty much made it already, but you've got a very special thing. You're running for governor of the state of Florida.
That's right.
Now, for our listeners and our guests that haven't heard of you or don't know a little bit about you, tell us a little bit of your history and why you're running for this state.
Well, I think everybody in this room does not want to go backwards after Governor Ron DeSantis, who Florida has really led every other Republican state in this country. And while Biden was in office, led the country for what makes America great, what gave us 250 years as the strongest, freest, most prosperous country on earth. And we talked about the prospect of having a Governor Andrew Gillum in 2018, and it sends chills down your skin to think about it. But another moment happened not even more recently, and I don't know about you, but I'm an early to bed, early to rise guy. You will never find me up past midnight, but I was up at 3 a.m. in the morning, hugging my wife, high-fiving my friends, first Tuesday in November 2024, when Donald Trump was elected president. Because imagine for a moment if Kamala Harris were president for even 4 years, much less 8 years, we wouldn't have a country. And I say all that to say that leadership matters. We didn't know COVID was coming when Ron DeSantis was elected. We don't know what the challenges are for the next 8 years, but I promise you they're going to be significant. And the reason I hope to earn your support is because we need somebody who's ready to lead on day one. I've had a lifetime of leadership under pressure, beginning when I was 23 years old. That guy over on the phone by the wall, that's what a 23-year-old looks like right there. See? That guy right there. That's what 23 looks when I was his age. In the Northern Gulf on the deck of the USS McInerney, navigating through mine-infested waters, leading a small boat team, OD personnel to destroy those mines so they would not kill Americans. And then 20 years later, in the second of two wars in Afghanistan, leading a team of men and women to stop foreign fighters from coming in to kill Americans. And then in between, I active duty and reserve, went to University of Florida, became a lawyer, and my first job was as a prosecutor in Broward County. And for those that don't know Broward County, it ain't Duval. And so you're fighting the defendant, the defense attorney, the judges, and oftentimes the juries. And so you're used to having a criminal, maybe a habitual or violent habitual offender behind you, a victim beside you, and a jury in front of you that you have to convince by a unanimous vote beyond a reasonable doubt to stop that person from ever creating another victim and put them away. That's leadership under pressure, and had leadership roles there as well. And then as Speaker of the House, for those that don't know, I call it like the head football coach. You're leading the legislative chamber, both the budget and also the policy. And what the Governor DeSantis called in the last couple of weeks, he said that my time as Speaker were the most conservative, consequential 2 years of any legislature, anywhere, anytime, which is a pretty nice compliment, because as a veteran, thank you. And this is why, and if I could have a show of hands of our veterans, I know we have a lot in the room, or a spouse of a veteran to thank you guys for your service.
Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
What every veteran in this room knows is that we love our country. We put service above self, which is not what most politicians do these days, but we also focus on the mission. And because of focusing on the mission, that's why we've got so much done in those 2 years. And so if you want somebody to solve the complicated problems that people say can't be solved, you go to somebody who's already done it before. So we have the background and the receipts to prove that we can lead on day one.
Now, Speaker Renner, we have faced some major challenges, and on the show, just reoccurringly over and over, 3 topics come to mind. The top one is freedom. And lately, I think we saw one of the major events that this country has that we all stop our country for and watch we saw a division like we've never seen before. The Super Bowl halftime show. And many people sat out there and said, guys, this is about freedom. It's about love. I watched that Super Bowl halftime show. And at the end of it, all I saw was someone totally distorting what freedom really is. They want the freedom to call sin acceptable. That is what I saw. I did not see something American and patriotic. I didn't see something. They said, oh, we want to represent the world. We want to represent all people in the country. Well, let me ask you this. Have you guys ever heard them say they want a Christian act for halftime? Are they forgetting about that? That's what this country is built on. But they never talk about having a religious act or an act representing different religions of the country, of the world. But forget about the world. Let's talk about America. So many people tune to a halftime show with with Turning Point. Amazing show, amazing event. So with freedom being such a big question, where do you stand on freedom and how do you define freedom? Because it seems like today we're using the word freedom to make sin acceptable.
Yeah, and the left has totally distorted that concept. And in fact, if you look across every issue, they are really looking to destroy every possible norm, whether it's constitutional norms, whether it's what is a woman. They can't even accept that there are male and female. On issue after issue, they're literally calling good guys, bad guys, good guys. And the hour is late, and this is why this race is so important, because Florida has led. You have to have a governor who continues to lead here in Florida. We don't know what happens in 2028. If we have a bad election cycle and elect a Democrat like Gavin Newsom, God help us, we better have Florida as a bulwark of freedom. As Speaker of the House, again, in those 2 conservative, consequential years, we led in building the free state of Florida. And I can tell you as governor, we are not going backwards. We will continue to lean into educational freedom. We were just voted #1 in educational freedom in the country. Health freedom. We're not going to force your kids to, we're going to let you make decisions about your kids' medical and mental health. This idea, when I was speaker, we ended transgender surgeries on minors. This idea that your schools, thank you, that we had a school at Tallahassee that said, oh, you're having some gender dysphoria. This girl, she doesn't know what's going on. And they changed her name. They gave her a set of clothes. Never tell the parents. It's crazy. That's in here in the state of Florida. And so trust me, the left is not going away. And while we have President Trump in the White House, we have Governor DeSantis, these super majorities, they are not going away. You better have somebody who's ready to bring the fight. And so I'm ready to bring the fight when it comes to the issues of freedom, and we'll do that. And so, in that regard, some of the challenges I see, let me just talk about that for a minute. We didn't see COVID coming, but we can see some challenges coming. Charlie Kirk, before he died, talked about the red-green threat, the threat of Sharia law, and the extremism you see in Europe, where there are no-go zones. And some of those countries, I think, are frankly lost. As governor, that they will never, ever get a toehold here, and we will do everything possible to keep them out. And the same is true, listen, when it comes to China, they're an adversary, they're an enemy, they have been for many, many years. I do not want to see Chinese students in our universities. They're coming because they're spies. They're not coming without the permission of the Communist Chinese Party, Chinese Communist Party. Same thing, you see this lab that just was closed down. There was a lab growing malaria, HIV. It was like the Wuhan lab here in the United States by Chinese nationals. And so we are a free country. We want to remain a free country, but that means we have to remain vigilant, because people like that with a completely wide open border, it wasn't just Mexicans coming across the border, it was Chinese, it was people that mean to do our nation harm, terrorists. And so we have to defend freedom at every turn. And when I'm governor, I'll do that.
Probably want to go a step further and make a point. Charlie Kirk didn't die, in my opinion. Charlie Kirk was murdered.
Sure he was.
For saying what we believe in, for talking about God. So that's why this is so crucial and important. Now, just recently, we've seen some elections occur, even with the endorsement of President Trump. We saw the governor of New York turn to a Democrat. I think a Democrat. I really don't even know what you call him. We've invited him on the show many times, though, by the way. Love to have him come in and explain why New York is better than Florida and why all the people are coming here from New York. But we've also seen New Jersey go. We've seen Virginia go. We've seen the latest that shocked me, Miami go with the endorsement. How important is it to have a Republican governor, a conservative Republican governor, with cities getting Democratic mayors like this?
Well, it's really important. And what I'll point to that separates me from some of the other candidates and is similar to this governor is what I love about Governor DeSantis is the same thing I love about President Trump is that they take the fight to the other side. They don't wait to see what hits their desk in the Oval Office or in Tallahassee. And I'll give you two examples. School board races. I know we have some school board members in here. In 2022 and in 2024, I was, I think, the only one to join the governor in terms of the funding and really kind of pushing to support out of a political committee money I raised. I don't have to spend for governor in both 2022 and then really kind of by myself in 2024 to make sure we have common sense conservatives making decisions about our children's education. And Anthony, you were one of those. We had a great night. Brett, thank you. We had a great night in Jacksonville, flipping our school board into one of the more conservative school boards in any major city for sure. I think the best school board in any major city in probably the country. And so going after them, that's not part of the Speaker of the House's job description. We're there to do the budget and pass laws and all that. Not the governor's job description. And then amendments 3 and 4, the pot and abortion amendments. We have out of state, not just out of state billionaires, but out of the country, foreign billionaires. A Swiss billionaire spent $14 million to put his personal agenda in our state constitution. And like the governor, I was done as speaker to finish the session that's coming up here. And for this speaker's term, I'm out of the legislature now. But in 2024, I was done, relaxing, spend time with my family. No, I'm not going to see the left come in and destroy our state with anything goes pot or anything goes abortion. I raised and donated over $2 million to stop those amendments. We have to have a leader who will stop them wherever they raise their head.
Now, I'd like to move on to the next one and talk about public safety. When the mayor race occurred in Miami, it was reported that Governor Gavin Newsom made the announcement, we're taking Florida back. Florida's coming back to us. We look at California, we look at their attack on law enforcement, we look at their public safety. We have events out there all the time. The other career I do is sports and entertainment. You can't go out there without having to step over someone on a curve or watch what feel bad for women. You're not watching where potholes anymore, or you're watching where feces is to make sure you don't step in it. Marijuana's floating around freely. People are smoking. They're doing drugs. They're legalizing drugs, saying we need to be kind and love and compassionate. Just like the Super Bowl said, this is about love. It's about loving sin, not condemning sin. You got to love the person. Totally conflicting to what the values are in this state and the public safety. How is the next governor you're going to stand to keep Florida safe, Florida conservative, and Florida, most of all, standing behind the principles of the Bible and God?
Well, since you asked about the Bible and God as a preacher's kid and a Christian, I'm just going to say, I know this is a political gathering, but the left's complete rejection is also a complete rejection of God. And you see that ends in chaos, in violence, in moral decay. Think about Jeffrey Epstein and know that and I remember this from Charlie Kirk before he was assassinated at an event he was at in Orlando. He pointed out that all these cultures that were thousands of years ago that were disconnected, no travel, no internet, they weren't talking to each other in separate continents, did one thing in common: sacrificed children. And so the pagan culture that is upon us, counts. We have to be mindful, not just of the politics, but also of the loss of faith in this country. And if we lose faith, if we lose family, if we lose these things, we will not be able to build enough government to manage the chaos. And so it's very important that this country not only have a return to conservative principles, but a return to Christian, godly principles, as Judeo-Christian principles that made our country great for 250 years. That's fundamental. And when it comes to public safety, I mentioned how they're turning the world upside down. Cops are bad, criminals are good, illegals are good, ICE is bad, all these things. And so as the only prosecutor in the race, I understand how to keep Florida safe. And that's the beginning of everything, because if you're not safe, you can't have businesses that succeed, kids can't go to school, they can't play in the streets, your housing prices go down. And conversely, when you flip that and you create safety, all those things get better. Jobs come back, home prices go up, people live better lives. So I have also laid out a written proposal, and we have more coming. We're going to talk about AI data centers in the future and some other things and energy. So look for that. We're coming out with real vision and real proposals. So public safety, we've come out to say this: you should not spend over 30 years on death row if you get a death penalty. You should be sent to your execution within a short period of time. All of us in this room, think about it for a minute. You had a 6-year-old girl who was raped and murdered. Her murderer was on death row for over 40 years until he was recently put to death. That is a mockery of the rule of law and a slap in the face of every victim and every victim's family who grows old and may die before they ever see justice for their families. That will end when I'm governor. We want a 3-year period for post-conviction appeals. That's enough time. So unanimous jury verdict of guilt, unanimous jury verdict for death. All that, this due process is there. We still want to give you your right to appeal so we got something wrong. Make no mistake. But you should be able to do all of that in 3 years. We're not going to let people game the system, and we're going to bring that into to its full enforcement. In that regard, sex trafficking, I came out with a plan not to disrupt, but to end sex trafficking. As horrific as Jeffrey Epstein, thank you. This was before the whole data dump on Jeffrey Epstein, but let me just tell you the saddest story is as bad as that is, and it's horrific. It's happening right now in Florida in real time today to boys and girls that are on the internet right now as we speak, and you need to know that. So I led the fight against online pornography. And with that no age verification, you can be 8 years old and click, yes, I'm 18, and see things you can't buy even in a convenience store. Okay. And so we did that. We also protected kids against addictive social media platforms that leave them on 6-8 hours a day. And guess what they use that for? Your sex predators are online more than anywhere else. Your child is safer in a county park in Duval by themselves tonight alone than in their bedroom on a digital device while mom and dad are sleeping. And that's a fact. I'm the only one. I went after them. They said, Speaker, big tech's going to lobby up against you. They did. In Tallahassee, they're going to stop you. They didn't stop us. We beat them. They said they're going to beat you in court. They're going to argue the First Amendment. Addiction is not protected by the First Amendment. You can't addict our kids and sell them for profit online. And so we beat them in court at the 11th Circuit. And I say all that because it leads into sex trafficking. So we have a plan to end sex trafficking. USF estimates 200,000 people every year are trafficked. Half of them are minors, 100,000 kids in the state of Florida. So trust me, as a father of a 5 and 3-year-old, they will wish they never came to the state of Florida when I'm governor. Additionally, recreational pot. Thank God it did not make the necessary petitions, but if you want to get it, we got medical marijuana. You can go see a doctor, you can get it. I don't want to smell it on my kids' plate. I don't want to smell it when I take my wife to dinner. So I'm going to oppose recreational, all things goes recreational pot as a public safety measure as well. And additionally, anti-corruption as part of our public safety agenda. We should not have people that get into office and all they do is self-promote and enrich themselves while they're in office. If you fail to disclose stock trades within 3 days, your penalty is the value of that stock trade. And if you're guilty of insider trading, where you have information because you're on a committee and you know something somebody else doesn't know, and you trade on that and make a profit, you could be recalled from office. And I want to see that happen when I'm governor. And finally, a couple points. I mentioned closing that loophole with foreigners funding these citizen initiatives to change our Constitution. I also want to permanently, DOGE is great, but Elon came and he went, the CFO is doing a great job. We've got to institutionalize and make DOGE permanent in every corner that covers taxpayer money.
Thank you, Speaker. The third and final thing I'd like to talk about is the economy. As we've seen history many times, empires, nations, superpowers, they all fall because of the economy falling apart eternally. America has definitely seen 4 of the hardest years, the past years we had prior to this president getting in, to economy falling apart. The highest interest rates we've seen since Jimmy Carter, probably even higher. Gas prices astronomical. When you travel around the country, you've seen them up into $7, $8, $9. Just Florida has people, some amazing citizens are on something called a fixed income. Our senior citizens, our kids, they're not having a chance to buy homes, buy things. The economy seems to be talked about a lot with Doge. I don't know many cities across the country that have holograms in an airport. Maybe we know of a local one where the citizens spoke up and said, hey, this isn't right. This is our tax-paying money. But it's spending like that that's going on everywhere. We hear a lot about Doge. Will Doge stop? What happens after Doge and you find out there's wasteful spending? It kind of, the story stops after they say they found it. You don't hear much more anymore about it. Do you have a plan to make sure that we follow through and hold these cities, these counties responsible for the money they're spending from people who are already struggling? And what is your plan to fix this economy?
Well, yeah. And so the big problem is that prices have gone up far faster than our incomes. And so when it comes to things like property taxes, government should never grow faster than our incomes can afford, period, full stop. I mean, that's conservative 101. And so that's happened. It's gone up twice as fast as our income. So there has to be a major move. But here's the problem on property taxes. There is no plan as we sit here today. The governor cannot put a plan on the constitutional ballot in November. The legislature has to do that. They've had a year and a half. We've been talking about it. They have not put anything on the ballot. They're talking about 3 or 4 different plans, which are conflicting and this kind of thing. And so what I've said is right now in 2 days' time, you could roll back taxes. It was done 20 years ago, at least to 2024. You can go back to 2020 if you want. But give people immediate relief now, because I talk to people all the time, many seniors who are leaving the state because of taxes, insurance, electric bills. And so I want to maybe, if I can address those 3 real quickly. So we've got to roll that back and then continue down the road toward bigger homestead property tax relief. And if the governor can get the legislature together and get a plan, but right now there is no plan. You need to know that. There's no plan on the ballot. We've got to see that. It's got to get to 60% or we're back at square one, which is why rolling back to some earlier point today, it's the only thing you can do legislatively with a 2/3 majority. They need to get it done. It's a 2 or 3 day deal. It's not a big, beautiful bill. They can get this done, and they need to do that ASAP for everybody, small businesses, renters, homestead, and get that in place while we talk about bigger reform for homestead. Insurance. One of the big things we tackled when I was speaker was insurance reform. We were called a litigation hellhole. You know, every other billboard, every other TV commercial was a plaintiff's lawyer. And so a handful of people were getting really, really rich, and guess who pays the bill? We do. And so we saw double-digit increases, people getting their policies dropped. We came in and reformed that. We see automobile rates going down for the first time ever. They're not going down anywhere in the country. Progressive's down 15%, State Farm down 20%. If your auto premiums are not going down, you need to shop it right now because it's very significant. Property is lagging, but we have some people who have their premiums going down, mine have not yet. But I know what needs to be done. We need to continue home hardening, which can bring down premiums as much as $1,000 with My Safe Florida Home, which matches you for doors, windows, roof ties. You can match up to $10,000 if you get an inspection and go and harden your home against a hurricane. And there's also things we can do, I believe, right from a regulatory standpoint to bring down property insurance by as much as 10%. And if you don't mind, I'll keep going on energy a little bit because we talk about the economy is returning more money into people's pockets. Our energy policy right now is broken. And I have bad news for you because while the utilities do a nice job after a hurricane, has anybody seen the largest increases in electric bills in history? And you know why? Because they're not following 3 common sense things that when I'm governor, I want to see in law, which is you requiring the utilities to provide you with the lowest possible cost energy per kilowatt hour that is domestically sourced, US of A, and is reliable. It doesn't go out when you remember the freeze that just came in a week ago. And in Central Florida, I'm out here, but people lost their power because we ran out of grid space. We ran out of capacity. So look at solar. And there's nothing, if you want to put solar in your house, put solar in your house. I'm not anti-solar, but these big, huge farms that are being used for capacity at scale, that kind of thing is where they're investing all the money for new electrical generation. It fails all 3 tests. It's significantly more expensive per kilowatt hour than, say, natural gas. It's not domestically sourced. Where do those panels come from? Right. Where do the batteries come from that stores the energy? China. And it's not reliable because if you haven't noticed, even in the Sunshine State, it ain't shining out there right now. And so you've got to have energy that's available 24/7. And the utilities have followed this green new scam of Biden era incentives we've got to reverse course, and that will bring down electric rates. So I can bring down taxes and will, I can bring down insurance and will, I can bring down electric bills and will as governor. And then the rest of it's keep taxes low, no state income tax, bring property taxes down, make sure we're generating the jobs that will allow people to make more money. Because at the end of the day, the affordability problem is make more money. So your incomes match the prices, because right now they're lagging.
Great stuff. Figure, I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you for letting the state of Florida, the county of Duval, the city of Jacksonville, and the great United States know where Florida stands. Chairman Barr, thank you for joining us today. And by a round of applause, how do we want to tell the world where Jacksonville stands on American values, God, and staying the freest and greatest county in the United States of America? Let's hear it. Guys, if that's not an endorsement to tell you why Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, is the greatest place to live, work, shop, and play, you now have it. We are going to fight strong. We're going to stand strong. We're going to fight hard, and we're going to keep our state, our counties, our cities, the greatest state in the country, in the greatest country in the world. Let's hear it again for Paul Renner. Chairman Barr, thank you for a great weekend. All right, now we're going to go into a question Q&A period where we have a few questions for Speaker Renner. And again, this show will air next weekend. It'll be podcasted. You can get it on Facebook, on the Joe Mullins Radio Show, or go to YouTube, the Joe Mullins Show, or listen to any of our affiliate stations in Salem Media. Thank you. Yeah.
No, there are no questions from the audience. If you want a question, that's what the cards were for. Yes. Are there any more cards out there I need to collect? Make it snappy. Let me get my glasses on. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Speaker. Okay. So I have a list of them here. We have a few. We probably got about 5 or 6 minutes to go on this. But
this will air on the podcast as well, so just letting y'all know. But it will not air on the radio show. We have a limited time.
I think you may have touched base a little bit on here, but how do you feel about keeping an eye on China to make sure that they don't take over America? Because, they're buying land all around the world, around the country. We need to watch out for that.
Yeah, they're buying land. When I was speaker, we stopped. I say stop that. We have a bill at least to restrict them, prevent them from buying land near any critical infrastructure or military base. We need to go even farther in that direction. We just have to recognize that this whole idea that if we trade with China, everything's going to be fine. We gave them a 20 or 30-year head start. They've taken our jobs. They were dependent on them for semiconductors, pharmaceuticals. We've got to inshore, as they say, bring those back to the United States is my priority. And if we can't do that, at the same time, we can also nearshore with countries that are friendlier to us, that are nearby. But as much as possible, I want to see those jobs here in America, here in Florida, if possible. China is a threat. I could go down. I talked about Chinese students. I talked about Chinese labs in our country. China is operating. Their spies are obviously operating in our country and stealing and engaged in cybersecurity attacks. All of these things are true, and they are looking to dominate the world. And it's okay. We just have to be steely-eyed. We've done this before. We fought back Nazi Germany. We fought back Soviet Union. We fought back every dictatorship and every threat to world peace that's come along as America. We're not afraid of any of this. We have to be realistic that we are in I hate to say a new Cold War, but we have to realize that we have a real enemy there in China. And the other thing that people need to know is they're investing in the Panama Canal, in Venezuela. That's why Maduro is so important, because he had a Chinese delegation there the day prior to his getting snatched. And that was a great job by President Trump and our United States military. How awesome are they in executing that?
The advancement of electronics, computers, all that stuff has happened so fast, and AI has come into the scene. What are your feelings on AI? How do you protect the country? How do you protect us against anything bad? How do you feel about it?
So there's two things that concern me significantly about AI. Now, is it going to have benefits? Yes, it's going to have benefits. But first of all, I talked about protecting our children. So it's an extension of what I did on social media platforms. Just think of AI as taking that up about an order of magnitude. And And so if kids are in school, I want a parental opt-in for them to go into schools and use AI. They should not have an AI chat buddy that becomes their replacement boyfriend or girlfriend or mom or dad, and that's teaching them things that are contrary to what you're teaching them at home. That is happening already. So we have to protect our children. Number two, when it comes to AI data centers, and I hear talk about national security, look, we're going to have AI data centers around America, but I'm running a Florida first campaign. And what I care about is making sure those AI data centers, which are huge consumers of electricity, they use a lot of electricity, they use a lot of water, is not being charged to you and me. Everybody in this room, everywhere this has been happening, where these data centers are coming in, their electric rates are going up because they can't keep up. And I just mentioned that our power went out in Central Florida. We don't have the reliable grid and the capacity today to absorb these data centers. And so my answer to those data centers is you got to bring your own electricity and you got to bring your own water, because we're not going to let you damage our aquifer either. And if you can do that, we can have that conversation. But we also have to protect children and protect against things like deep fakes when you're in a campaign and all of a sudden a week out, here I am, looks like me, talks like me, and I'm talking about, loving Planned Parenthood and wanting to kill puppies, and that's going to happen in politics. And so there's a great potential for an enormous manipulation through AI because it looks so real and it will do things that are good, but we have to make sure we don't blindly go in like we did with social media and think everything's going to be okay. Let's just, and so I believe in the 10th Amendment. I do not support the preemption efforts by the federal government over AI. I think that's important. I applaud the governor's AI Bill of Rights. I support it. I think it needs to go even farther, and we'll be talking about that in a press conference coming soon. But the 10th Amendment's going to get a CrossFit workout every day when I'm governor, especially if there's a Democrat president, because we're going to assert our 10th Amendment rights when it comes to an overreaching federal government.
Speaker, one of the things, too, that I think need to be brought up that you had mentioned before is the facial recognition. How many of you guys in here have done facial recognition to be able to verify a payment or verify your ID with the government or something? Think about this with AI, how far off it is for someone to put your face on them and do that verification. This is scary. One of the youth that were listening to the show said this is like a cheap dating site in America is becoming, where people use AI to fake pictures and stuff. Nobody's real anymore. And I said, you know what? That's a very valid point. We have turned around and made any kind of verification that way. So the importance of regulating this AI, especially for the state of Florida, for the fraud that we see, is crucial.
Thank you. The next one, as a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, please explain your vote for red flag laws.
So the Parkland bill, and here's what I'll say. Elon Musk got it right when he says a bill can be big or beautiful, but not both. That bill was big. And so here's what I voted for. The Parkland bill ended gun-free zones, which is important because that's where our kids get killed, whether it's churches or schools. I voted to end gun-free zones. I voted to make sure that a armed good guy with a gun is there to stop a bad guy with a gun, which that bill also did. It also hardened our schools against threats, physically hardened. It also requires a risk assessment at every one of our schools to make sure that kids are not harmed. Now, in that bill were things that I didn't put in the bill, but I don't like, because I believe that the Second Amendment is an individual right, and you have to do something to lose that right, commit a crime, do something that causes you to lose that. And so when I was speaker, one of the things that I objected to in that bill was raising, you have a 18 to 21 requirement for handguns that I believe is federal law. Now, my opponent's done nothing whatsoever, to my knowledge, to repeal that at the federal level. I think it should be, because if you can go and fight at 18, you should repeal that as well. The Parkland bill did that for long guns, basically, with exceptions depending on your circumstances. 2 years in a row when I was speaker and I was in charge, we voted to repeal that portion of Parkland, and I would repeal anything in the Parkland bill that infringes on individual rights, for Second Amendment rights for the law abiding. And that's the bottom line. But again, the bill is big and beautiful. It's not both. It's one or the other. It was big, but it did some very, very good things, along with some things that I object to and still object to.
Charles, did you think of this? The guy, and forgive me for forgetting his name, but the guy that was killed by ICE in Minnesota, the gentleman up there. Yeah. Did he not, a liberal guy, didn't he have a gun on him?
He did.
So the liberals are against the guns, but yet they want to carry the guns when it's good for them. Have you ever thought about the hypocrisy that's done by that party, where it's not okay for us, but it's okay for them?
Yeah, and I'll comment on that particular issue because one of the things we did on public safety when I was speaker is the HALO Act, which is a 25-foot buffer. So if a law enforcement officer is in the middle, is in the middle of an arrest or an investigation, they have to give you a warning. So you can't, like, somebody asked me, like, well, speaker, what if they walk by a protest? And as a veteran, you have a right to be an atheist, though I'm a Christian. You have a right to be a progressive, though I'm a conservative, and shout it to the housetops. That's your First Amendment right. So you can't infringe it by walking into that 25-foot bubble without a warning. The cops have to warn you and say, please step back. But this thing, you get your phone in their face and all this, and you're, kicking them, harassing them. In Florida, you can be arrested on the spot. And whether that means you get prosecuted or not, the bottom line is it de-escalates. It keeps the officer safe. It keeps the other individual safe, the idiot that's trying to harass the police officer. And that, I think that would have saved lives up in Minnesota, but they have an anything goes. The cops weren't there. I don't think any local police officers were there. And I'm asked questions about, do we need National Guard here in Florida? No, because we let cops do their job and go after bad guys.
Due to the time, this is going to be the last question, but let me preface this. We look around the country and we see people bringing their ideals in. They're not assimilating. There's no saying when you're in Rome, do as Romans do, right? But when folks are coming in and they're bringing their own beliefs and not following, we see it in Minnesota. We see it out in Texas. Here in Jacksonville, there's a few small spots. But what will you do to protect Florida from Sharia law?
Yep. So if you'll remember, those that have gray hair like me, thank you, is I spent, if you heard my bio, most of my life in the two wars were over in the Middle East. And remember the line was, we have to fight them abroad so we don't have to fight them here at home. You remember that? And then we welcomed them here at home. And that was a huge, huge mistake. And so now it becomes much, much more difficult, but we have to stop that immigration process, I believe. It's like adoption. You bring in people that you want in the family. And if you're someone, no matter, we're all immigrants. And obviously, as they say, we all came here from some place other than Native Americans. And yet there's an assimilation, whether we agree on politics, we don't reject people's First Amendment rights or their other rights. And so you have in Sharia law, what is really a totalitarian system and every aspect of society that is dressed up in religious garb. And so it's different than someone practicing a different faith than mine. It is an assimilate or die, convert or die. And it is fundamentally antithetical to every principle that America's founded on. And so as governor, this is where we'll exercise the 10th Amendment and throw cases up to the Supreme Court. I was a champion of school choice. I believe that, Christian parents ought to be able to send their kids to a Christian school and get a little help. You pay your taxes. It's half as much as you pay to go into the public schools. The scholarship is half as much, but they're using that. Some of them are using that then I'm told to train then people into indoctrination into the Sharia concept, to hate other Americans, to hate the Constitution, to hate our country, and eventually take it over. So I want to see that challenged in the courts because I do believe Sharia law is not a true religion. It is a bolt-on that is totalitarian and focused.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to say thank you so much for being here tonight. I want to say good luck to your race. I told you earlier, I've reached out to quite a few candidates, and not all of them want to come, or not all of them have come. You did, and I certainly appreciate it. I know you have to get out of here tonight. But when we end this in a minute, just stay in your seats. We got to do our business. I hear the candidates speak. I hear the club speak. But again, have a safe trip. Thank you so much for coming, and good luck.
Can I make a quick thank you?
Joe, and Joe, thank you again for having us. And anybody who wants to see the podcast, if you get in touch with us, we'll be sure to get.
We'll share it with the page.
Quick Sam.
Yes, sir.
Before I commit political malpractice, my staff will kill me if I don't say, if you want to support us, go to voterenner.com. You can see the whole affordability plan. You can see a lot of the things and more that we talked about. Volunteer, contribute, get involved. You can learn a lot there. Voterenner.com. And the final thing is, I apologize that I got around the room and tried to meet most of you beforehand, but I've got to be at an 8 o'clock meeting tomorrow morning in Tampa. So we're getting on the road. We don't slow down. We're the hardest working campaign in Florida. So follow us on social media, please, on X, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you do on social media, and stay tuned for more good things to come. We're not going backwards. God bless you.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Recorded by the Flagler Voice Podcast Studio.